Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Thanks for tuning in. Of course, this is Wooden Sticks. I'm Kevin Gorg, your host. You're on the Talk North Podcast Network. As always, we record from the Aquarius Home Services Studio. Gotta love Aquarius Home Services. Gotta love playoff hockey, even though this series has not started out the way we wanted here in the Twin Cities. Still a lot of hockey to go, and we're going to break it down today on the show with Seth Toupal from Locked On Wild. Very, very cool Wild podcast that they have year-round, game previews, game recaps, incredible insight. They really dissect this thing, and I've been on the show multiple times. I'm a dear friend of Seth's, and I really look forward to tapping into his knowledge today and talking about a Colorado 2-0 lead in the series. We're recording this on Wednesday. We've got a nice gap in the series, so it's a perfect time to record the podcast. Game 3, Saturday in St. Paul, 8 o'clock. There's going to be a viewing party around the area by the rink there where people can come out there if they don't have tickets, have some libations, and hang out and watch the game. It's one of my favorite parts of watching playoff hockey, both here and in Canada, when you watch those national broadcasts, those gatherings like the last couple of years in Edmonton outside the arena with those 6, 8, 10,000 fans that weren't able to get into the building. They can enjoy the game outside. We're going to have that flavor on Saturday. It looks like it's going to be close to 70 degrees. The bars are going to have great food and beverages flowing throughout West 7th in downtown St. Paul. So come on out, be a part of it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully Minnesota gets some good news on the injury front. It doesn't sound like they're going to see Jonas Brodin anytime soon, but Joel Eriksson Ek has the possibility of maybe returning on Saturday. He could make a big difference up front. And then, we'll dissect this with Seth in our conversation here momentarily. But the goaltending situation, adjustments the Wild can make. I think there are some things that John Hines and his coaching staff can do. And Hines, getting to know him the last couple of years, is terrific at making adjustments within shifts, within games, and certainly in these playoff series, we've seen him do that. He was fantastic again in that Dallas series. They've got a couple of adjustments they can make. They're not that far off, and Colorado is going to be hard to beat. We knew that coming in. McKinnon's been a problem. He's been really good. Their speed has been a problem. Minnesota's physical play hasn't been able to catch up to them in situations. But really the two areas of great concern is, I thought coming into this series, the biggest advantage Minnesota had on paper as you handicap the series was between the pipes. And unfortunately, so far, it's gone the other way. Even though I thought Wedgie, as they call him in Denver, Wedgwood struggled in game 1. Minnesota got him for 6 and made him look foolish throughout different parts of that hockey game. Yes, Vervolsted had a tough game, and Minnesota didn't defend well enough in game 1 and gave up 9 with the empty netter. So they go to Philip Gustafsson. The Gus bus looked rusty to me. I thought it was a risky move. Listen, within a series, coaches are going to have to make hard choices, and that first puck probably one that Gus would want back. I thought he settled in a little bit second half of the game. Certainly gave them a chance to rally a little bit, but the power play goal that McKinnon got to make it 4-1 was the straw that broke the camel's back. The Wild had some chances to make it 3-2, and at any point, had they made it 3-2, I think it really could have got interesting, but the penalty kill's got to be better. So the goaltending and the penalty kill are the two areas that I'm watching for on Saturday that have to be shored up and play at a high level. If you don't get goaltending, if you don't get big penalty kills on Saturday, it's going to be a short series. It's that simple. They have to be better. And I have confidence, especially in our goaltending. I think Wallsted's going to start. I think he's going to play a great game. I think you'll see a lot of the same things you saw in that Dallas series from him. He craves the spotlight. He wants to be in the net in a big game, and he can draw back on experiences in that building where he shut down Colorado within a 60-minute game, a 5-minute overtime, and that remarkable sequence within the shootout where he stopped Makar and McKinnon in back-to-back fashion, and that celebration that we've grown to love and has become a T-shirt with the Wall of St. Paul has had its starting place that particular game back in the first half of the regular season. So we'll break it all down with Seth Toupal. We'll talk Wild and Avalanche. We'll get a look at the National Hockey League playoffs from all around, both Eastern and Western Conference showdowns. We'll talk a little bit about the draft and the draft lottery that happened earlier this week. So it's going to be a lot of fun hockey conversation here on Wooden Sticks. Before we get to Seth, let's thank some of the great people that make this show happen. And I'll start with my dear friend John Schweitz and Minnesota Masonic Charities. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Masonic Charities. When you think about the Masons, I get it. You think about the funny hats, those pancake breakfasts, which are phenomenal. My dear friend John Schweitz and I have chatted about this, and it's so much more than that. They've got the Masonic home over in Bloomington. They've got the hospital for the children over at the U of M. They are the largest fraternal organization in terms of charitable needs in our country, and they deserve a ton of recognition. So thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities, for all you do and for supporting us over here at Talk North, and a special thanks to my good friend John Schweitz. Also want to thank the great people that work with Onyx Fish and Onyx Maps. We're getting into crunch time for the outdoors here in Minnesota. Thank you to Onyx Fish and Onyx Maps.
If you like to hunt or fish, I highly recommend checking out onyxmaps.com. Check it out for onyxmaps.com/hunt or onyxmaps.com/fish. Stop fishing the same lake because it's the only one you know. Onyx Fish lets you filter lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potential so you can make a smarter call on where to spend your Saturday before you ever hitch up the trailer. It's only $34.99 for the year, less than a spool of good braid. Download Onyx Fish on the App Store or go to onyxmaps.com/fish and fish smarter this season.
Lexus of Wyzetta and Maplewood. Great people, great vehicles. Check them out. And a new one here, and it's going to be really, really good. And I'm looking forward to a new partnership. Hi, this is Kevin Gorg, and I wanted to introduce you to a product a lot of my friends have been using lately called Lucy. Lucy is a premium tobacco-free nicotine pouch that comes in a variety of strengths and flavors, so there's an option for just about everyone. What makes it stand out is the flavor experience, especially with Lucy Breakers, which have a built-in flavor capsule you crack for an instant extra burst. That's what makes Lucy different. It's the only pouch delivering long-lasting, on-demand flavor, giving you a unique experience every single time. And now you can get 20% off your first order at lucy.co/woodensticks. Use the promo code Wooden Sticks. And if you don't want to wait, check out their store locator so you can find Lucy near you and grab it today. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of a legal age, and every customer is age verified. Warning, this product does contain nicotine, and nicotine is an addictive chemical. And this is where you come in as listeners. If you've got family, if you've got friends, if you've got people in a business that need to be elevated, then this is the place to find them. And we've got Lucy nicotine patches, and they're going to be fun to work with. All right, we're back on Wooden Sticks, a playoff edition, as the Minnesota Wild battle the top team in the National Hockey League, the Colorado Avalanche, down 2-0 in the series. And really looking forward to this conversation today with our dear friend of the program. He is Seth Toupal from Locked On Wild. Seth, good to be with you.
KG, glad to be here with you today. It's been a fun postseason. The Avs, I think, just have they've done some flexing. So happy to be here to kind of break things down and rally up for Game 3.
Yeah, I think this is going to be very therapeutic. I was over in St. Paul earlier today. I had to go pick out a couple things at the Hockey Lodge store. It's lovely. Enjoy going there, and bumped into some Wild fans. Everybody's a little downtrodden, and I get it. Like Minnesota sports fans, we're a fragile bunch, And, watching those first two games, I think if you look at this pragmatically, Seth, if you would have told John Hines before they flew out to Denver last week that they were going to get 8 goals in the first two games, I'm pretty certain he would have taken that. But here we are down 0-2.
Yeah, and it's funny because I really don't have a ton of issue with what the Wild have done in 5-on-5. I think they did a great job of attacking Scott Wedgwood in game 1 in a way that it didn't seem like he really had experienced. He looked flustered out there with all the attack from in front of the net. They got away from it a little bit in game 2 because it felt like the Avs did a good job of adjusting to what happened in game 1. But on the other sides, the goaltending, I know it's not all on Jesper in game 1, but you give up the 8, and it's such a backbreaker in game 2. Like you make the change, you go with Philip Gustafsson, and the first shot, you are really trying to get that early punch against the Avalanche, especially at Ball Arena. It's so crucial to get the early punch in that environment. And the first shot goes in. It is an absolute backbreaker, and it felt like the Wild never really recovered from that. Even though the score, it was 3-1, they were not out of it by any means. But then at the end of the game, it felt like the Avs kind of sensed the blood in the water, and they just showed like, hey, this is the postseason, and this is how we do it.
Yeah, Nathan McKinnon's a special player, and I think he's shown that in both these games. It's not just the 6 points. It's the physical play. It's the puck movement. It's the power play that you talked about. I think for Minnesota, there's a lot of areas that they can improve on. There are adjustments you can make. And the biggest thing I thought coming into this series, Seth, is if Minnesota had any chance at all, and they were an underdog. I mean, in the betting market, Colorado was minus 290. That's a significant favorite. So what do you have to do to extend that series, to get to a game 6, to maybe push it to a game 7 where Colorado legitimately has to feel some pressure? And right now, they're freewheeling it. They've yet to lose a game in the playoffs. We haven't got there. Saturday's game, number 3, is the pivot point in this series for me. And if Minnesota can get some confidence, if they can feed off that crowd, if they can start to make that physical play count, because that's been an issue in the first couple of games, and if they can get a penalty kill at a timely point in a hockey game, they've proven they can skate with this team and they can beat this team. Missing Brodin is going to be a problem. He's not going to be back within this series. We know that. If that comes back, is he going to be 100%? So you have to put that out of your mind. There is still a way to beat this team. They showed that in pockets of the first couple of games. In your eyes, watching all the hockey you watch, how can Minnesota make their physical play matter? Because it's looked to me, watching these first couple games, throughout most of these games, Colorado's speed has really, I think, made it difficult for Minnesota to get that physical play going.
Yeah, and it's torrential pressure from the Avs offensively, and they are a team that is good enough that you're going to get high levels of offense from line 1. You're going to get push from line 4. Every line that they throw out there is going to push. They're going to attack north and south. Jared Bednar, he does such a good job of having that group ready to rock, and it's a tall task for this Minnesota Wild team, but I love to kind of take a step back from hockey and look at other sports to try to kind of tell the story. This reminds me of going up against a high caliber offense in the NFL. High flying, they throw the ball all over the place. The way that you have to attack teams like that is you got to do a little puck control. You got to do a little ball control. You have to make offensive zone time count. And you do that by winning the battles along the boards, by turning there were a lot of one and dones in game 2. You got to turn those into possessions where you get 2 or 3 shots on net. You have to own the outside and use the outside to attack inside. And just, everybody who excels at winning those board battles has got to just own that area. Marcus Foligno, Nick Foligno, everybody else on the lineup, they have to win those battles on the outside. They have to use that to keep possession alive. And then you got to take the attack downhill. If you're launching shots from outside and hoping that you're going to will one in, that's a tall order. Scott Wedgwood is too good of a goalie to get beaten that way. You got to attack him just like they did Jake Ottinger in round 1.
I agree. And in game one, they were able to get to the inner slot, and that's where a bunch of those goals were scored from. And I think Foligno showed it in tight. You can get this guy swimming a little bit, but any NHL goalie, especially at the highest level, is not going to let in pucks from distance unless he's completely screened or it's a wicked good deflection. And so, I look at some of the, John Hines is such a good coach when it comes to making adjustments, whether it's within game or from game to game in these playoffs. I thought he was masterful in that series against Dallas, some of the subtle things he did. One of the decisions he has to make, and I can't wait to get your opinion, I love Jake Middleton and I love Jared Spurgeon. They are unbelievably valuable players for this team. Nothing has changed in my eyes, but the facts are the facts. And Middleton's been on the ice for 9 goals in this series and Spurgeon's been on the ice for 8. And Colorado had the advantage of having the last change, setting the matchup, and no Jonas Brodin. So a lot of chatter about using Damon Hunt, who's, let's be honest, he's not Jonas Brodin. Not many in this league are, but he's got that skill set where he can skate a little bit, putting him with Spurgeon and then reuniting Middleton on that third pair, whether it's Petrie or Bogosian, depending on Bogo's health. Would you do that? Do you see that as being a difference maker, or is it just Colorado is so good that after Faber and Hughes, it's going to be a problem either way?
I would at least try it. I mean, it is something that I think you're in a situation in this series where that has become such a glaring area that I think you just have to try some different pairings. And, maybe it's a situation where if Damon Hunt is not able to handle it for the full game, maybe you have to throw Brock Faber on a shift with Jared Spurgeon just to try some different looks. I think you get to this part of the postseason, and these two teams they know each other. They know what each side is going to do, and not having Jonas Brodin to be able to more adequately defend those rushes, you just got to start throwing some looks at the Avs that they're not prepared for to try to slow them down. Jake Middleton brings physicality, which is important, and him playing well is going to be important in this series. But at this point, it's not working. Like at this point, you have to throw a different look out there that is going to knock the Avs even a little bit off their game. So give Damon Hunt a shot. He's responsible enough. I mean, honestly, even Jeff Petrie, he's a responsible enough defenseman that he's not gonna. He may not give you a lot, but he's not going to hurt you nearly as much as some of these other scenarios do right now. So John Hines has played the lineup Frankenstein a few times throughout the regular season. I think it might be time a little bit for that, because if you find the right combination to win Game 3, maybe you find something you can stick with for the next couple of games that can kind of sway the tide a little bit.
I'm going to give you time to think about your answer. I think Wild fans right now are looking for some positivity because there's a negative cloud within this series because Colorado is so damn good. And you tip your hat after 2 games to Bednar and to the top end players and Makar and McKinnon, and on it goes, right? So I'm going to look for some silver linings of positivity. I've got one top of the head. As I'm talking, you can think of a silver lining within the game. It could be a player. It could be a sequence. It could be something you extracted from those first 2 games that you want to see amplified on Saturday night. And I know that Eck is waiting in the wings and they're trying to get him healthy. I hope, against all hope, that if and when he can come back, he's healthy and ready to make an impact. But I do not want Danila Yurov out of the lineup. I have been super impressed with Yurov in this series specifically. He had some ups and downs in the series against Dallas. He made some mistakes. The puck he threw out of play, a little bit of a panic play in that series. I really have liked his game, kind of under the radar in these first 2 games out in Denver. I think he's super smart. I think he's got a ton of upside. And I'm old enough that I remember when players like Mikko Koivu and Joel Eriksson Ek started in the league. And when they first started in the league, they were super safe and smart defensive players, but you could see there were some offensive capabilities, and it took them a little while to get there. I look at Yurov. He's so good without the puck. He's such a smart hockey player. He allows the players on the ice with him to take some chances because he's always in the right spot. And now I'm seeing him get some confidence offensively. So whatever happens with that situation, and obviously I'd love to see number 14 on the ice Saturday in St. Paul, but I really want to see Yurov out there because he should be rewarded for the way he's played. Any silver lining that comes to mind for you?
I'm going to go with Michael McCarron. I think was he was a much more impressive deadline acquisition than I thought, mainly because I didn't know a ton about him. I knew because of the dust up that he had with Matt Zuccarello. I knew that he was a player, but he is a gamer, true and true. And you look at game one. And with Joel Eriksson Ek out of lineup, we know how deep the Avs are at the center position. And for him to go 16 out of 22 in the dot was unbelievably impressive. And I thought the couple of goals he had against Dallas were great. Would love to see him get a chance to maybe pot a couple here in this series. But that was a big concern heading into this series, was how the Wild were going to match those centers. And for McCarron to do that, and for him to, through 2 games, be sitting above 50% in the faceoff circle, that's impressive.
Yeah, I'm with you. I knew he was a player. I knew he was physical. I knew he won some draws, and so I knew he was a guy. I had no idea the impact he would have on this hockey team, and I don't know if the Wild can afford him in the offseason, but I certainly hope they give it their best shot because he's fit in great in the locker room, around the rink. The guys love him. They call him Big Sexy. Like, he's good fun. And I think you're spot on, Seth. I think this guy is unafraid of the big moment, the big spot. And the frustrating part for me on the penalty kill is in the Dallas series, it felt like the faceoff dot was the precipice of all our troubles. When we got to the power play, Dallas would win the draw, they'd clear the puck, and 30 or 40 seconds would be off the power play until the Wild got back in the zone. On the flip side, every single big moment when Dallas had a power play, we'd lose the draw, and they would have the puck in our zone. There was a couple power play goals they scored where it was late in that 2-minute sequence, and they never left the zone because they won the draw. In this series, what's really frustrated me is we're winning those draws. McCarron is winning those big penalty kill draws, and we're getting an immediate clear, and we're still not able, down a man, to get through the 2 minutes. And that part to me is concerning. And watching the way Colorado dissected our penalty kill on the backbreaking 4th goal of the hockey game, that was the McKinnon goal where he slid to the high slot. They've got to stay more in that box or that diamond. Anyone who's coached youth hockey or watched hockey for a long time, I want those 4 players to create a box. If Colorado gets the puck to the top of the slot and they kind of have that umbrella look where they have weapons on the half wall, then you got to go to the diamond, but you're not giving away those seam passes, and that's where they're getting killed. They've got to figure out a way on the PK to take away those seam passes. Volsted's a great goalie. He had one bad game. I loved his 6 games he put out in front of us in the Dallas series. Give him the outside shots on Saturday night. Take away the seam passes, and let's get through a couple of penalty kills. I want that loon noise that you hear when you're at Grand Casino Arena. Even if you watch TV, you can hear it in the broadcast. When that penalty expires, you get to hear the loon noises. I'm looking for a lot of that on Saturday if Minnesota's going to get back in this.
Yeah, and think about this too. The Wild will be in front of the home fans in the second round for the first time in 11 years. Think about the amount of energy that should bring to this group and the amount of excitement that these fans are going to have. I know the mood has dampened because of what happened in the first 2 games, but it's an 8:00 game on a Saturday, so people are going to be able to go across the street. They're going to be able to get themselves nice and riled up and ready for this game. It's the first time that Wild fans have been able to see a home playoff game at Grand Casino Arena in 11 years. And if that crowd energy can lightning rod into the locker room and they feed off of those cheers and they maybe are able to get an early goal, they can flip one. I know as lopsided as things have looked with the Avs so far in these 2 games, if they can harness some of that crowd energy, they can flip one at home. They can flip game 3. And as far as I'm concerned, game 3 is the only game that I care about right now. I'm not looking any bit further ahead in this series. Game 3 has got to be a shift by shift. approach, and you win game 3 and then you do it again in game 4, and you just have that mentality. That's what you got to do to come back in this series. You just have to focus on one shift, one hit, one face-off, one shot on goal, a tip in. You just got to focus on all those little things that are directly in front of you, and use that to pull momentum back.
When I think of this matchup, it does remind me a little bit of 2014, and I think Jared Spurgeon can be a nice conduit to the locker room as the team captain to remind them that in 2014, Colorado had an unbelievable year. They were loaded. It was McKinnon's rookie year. Minnesota went out to Denver. They were the underdog in the series. Should have won at least one, if not both of those first 2 games. I was working sidelines, ice level. You left Denver extremely frustrated, down 2-0 in the series, and it felt a lot like it feels right now, Seth, where it's like, what are we going to have to do to beat this team? We put 2 decent games out there, and we haven't been able to beat them. So the Wild come back home in 2014, and it's a 0-0 game, a tense game all the way through regulation and into overtime. Kyle Granlund scores a goal where he ends up on his belly. He beats Varlamov right in front of the blue paint to make it a 2-1 series. And we know the rest of the story. Minnesota was able to extend that series and get to a Game 7. And Jared Spurgeon ended up playing a huge role within that Game 7 because that's the game where Minnesota was down 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, and 4-3. And the goal that made it 4-3 was ironically Eric Johnson, who's now between the benches covering the game like he was in Game 2 for ESPN. He scores, the Minnesota guy does, to put them up 4-3 late in the third period. The building's going bananas, and Spurgeon scores a ridiculously cool goal with about 4 or 5 minutes to go to make it 4-4. And eventually we get Heatley to Brodziak to Niederreiter, bar down, Game 7 winner, one of the greatest moments in the history of this organization. They've got to draw on those experiences, understanding that, to me, the series doesn't really start until both teams get a win in the series. I know the cliche is series doesn't start till the home team wins the game. Well, that's not true, because if that's the case in 87 and 91, then those World Series never started, because the home team won all 7 games for the Twins when they played in both those World Series. So the series starts when both teams get a win. And if you don't let the series start till it's 3-0 Colorado, it's going to end pretty quick anyway. Saturday is the game. You're spot on. They've got to figure out a way to get the crowd into the game early. I don't know if it's going to matter, Seth, but it's a statistical anomaly. Now 28-1 for the last 29 playoff games involving the Minnesota Wild. The team that scores first has won the game. The only game where that did not happen was within that Dallas series. I think it was way back in Game 4. How big would it be? And you've been there as a fan, you've been there as a journalist, but how big would it be to see Minnesota not just get a lead, but take a lead into the locker room after the first period? It's just felt to me throughout these first 2 games like Minnesota was chasing the game, and that's not where they play their best hockey.
Yeah, you're spot on. It is, I think, magnified in these types of moments. And I think, ironically, to kind of flip that, I think that is why the Wild have had as much success on the road as they have, because they play a style where they are able to limit what the home team's trying to do. You're in your home barn. You're trying to score a goal as early as you can to get the crowd into it and keep them into it. And the Wild, they've done a really good job in road environments of just keeping the crowd out by limiting goals. So it's going to be paramount on Saturday that they get an early goal so that the crowd gets feisty and they start, I don't know whose name they're going to be chanting, but they just start chanting somebody's name at the top of their lungs just to get that energy going. And I think just collectively for the team's mentality too, an early goal. All right, we're in this series. We can just wash away what happened the last 2 games. Let's go out there and get number 2. Let's play with the lead in the third period. Let's have an opportunity to win this game and to take what the Avs have and be ready for it. That's what Saturday is going to be all about, and it's an opportunity for some of these guys to write their own stories, like write their own legacies. Vladimir Tarasenko has won a couple of Stanley Cups, and I know earlier in the postseason he said, 1 game at a time. Don't focus on anything beyond what's right in front of you. That's a guy that has been in a Stanley Cup final a couple of times and has hoisted that trophy. So somebody can step up. Somebody can be the hero to start this off. And here in Minnesota, we are just waiting to fill books with those types of moments. So whoever wants to have it, go ahead and grab it, and it'll get celebrated for a long time.
All right, I want to get to some around the league questions with the other series and Toronto getting the lottery ball to fall their way for the first pick in the draft. I want to get some of your opinions on kind of a broad brush of the national side of things come playoff time here. But close your eyes and envision that Minnesota wins the game, and whether you're in the stands or in the press box or you're watching from home, and they're going to bring out the number one star on Saturday night. So close your eyes and imagine, okay, the Wild just made it a series. It's now 2-1. The building's going bananas. It's packed. In your eyes, who will be the number one star if the Wild win that game on Saturday?
This has Matt Boldy game written all over it.
I knew it. Yes. Good pick. Eck coming back, right? Big factor there. Such a good player.
Yeah. He is, if he can give them even 70% of what he does on a regular basis, it's going to be a big help. Just because of what he does in front of the net, what he does on defense, what he does in the faceoff circle. If he can give them any level of that, it's going to be a big boost. And just having him in the lineup too, I think is going to be a huge lift for this team.
I hope Eck comes back because he does have quite the influence on Boldy. And I'm going to say this before I get to my number one star. It is so refreshing to see star players care as much as Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy do. And I'm lucky enough to be around these guys all the time. And I tell anybody who will listen, when people ask me, in fact, I had a conversation at the Hockey Lodge earlier today about this. These guys care so much and work so hard behind the scenes and are such good teammates. They work like they're fourth line players just hoping to land a spot, and they're superstar players. So when you say Matt Boldy, he's one of those players when he has a big night. I just feel like a proud uncle that's just kind of there going, oh my God, this is so cool for him. He really deserves this. And so I hope you're right. If you wouldn't have picked him, I would have picked him, but I'm going to go to the easy answer, because if you beat Colorado, if you shut this team down and Minnesota wins the hockey game, it has to be Jesper Wallstedt. And he had a remarkable year. You know, a year ago right now, he was lost in the woods. His game really struggled. He could not find his game in the American League a year ago, and he had a great summer. He had a great camp. We've talked about this a lot, but there was a moment early in the season against Colorado where in a shootout, he, in back-to-back fashion, stopped two of the best players on the planet with Makar and McKinnon. And he did that celebration for the first time, and it got everybody all wound up in Denver. But the point I'm making is that was a pivot point to his season, and he played a great game within that game before they got to the shootout. That's the game he'll bring to the table. Getting to know him, Seth, he craves the spotlight. He wants to be on the ice, and the fact that he wasn't on the ice for game 2, he is going to bring a swagger and a chip on his shoulder that I think is going to push him to that level we saw in the Dallas series. I have so much confidence in how good this kid can be. Wally will be the number one star. They'll be chanting Wally's name. If Minnesota's going to beat Colorado in game 3, it's got to be with some great goaltending. All right, we're going to segue to more of the national side of things. Some great stories within the league, and I know as Minnesota sports fans, we can certainly relate a little bit to what those hockey and football fans who are terrific in Buffalo have suffered through. And I thought the pressure of trying to beat Boston might be too much. But now that they're through that, Seth, these guys have a legitimate shot to get to the Cup. What have you seen from the Buffalo Sabres, and how do you lean in that series that, as we record this on Wednesday, starts later tonight?
This is outside of Wild Avalanche. This is, I think, my favorite series in round 2. You think about the star power that Montreal brings to the table, the young goaltending in Jakub Dabish, who was sensational against the Tampa Bay Lightning. He stole Game 7 against a team that has had more postseason experience than anybody. And a rookie goaltender said, "No, I'll win the series. That's okay." Buffalo is such a fun case. I felt so good for Lindy Ruff winning the round one series because they, kudos to, I think the game was on ESPN. They had the shot of him going down the tunnel and fist pumping pretty much every employee that was working that night. And it was just such a cool moment because that's exactly what Buffalo brought him back for. Was he was here the last time we had a taste of the postseason, and we're going to channel that to get back to it. And they have. And whether it be Tage Thompson, whether it be Alex Tuck, they have so many players that are just dynamic as far as scoring goals go. But how about our guy Alex Lyon, who steps in and he just shores up that net. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen was fantastic in the regular season, but I think we saw exactly why the postseason is so important. Is you're one game away from having to make a call like that. And Buffalo made the decision to go to Lyon, and he responds, and they find a way to kind of outlast the Bruins. I would love to see them continue this. This is going to be just pure cinema on the ice between these two teams. And just because I love the story, I think I'll take Buffalo to win.
Yeah, I think it's going to be high flying, high scoring, great hockey. And I think of players like Jordan Greenway and Jason Zucker and even Alex Tuck, who I got to know in their time in Minnesota. They're great human beings. They're good players. They're fun to watch. Zucker's just been that guy that scores big goals at big moments. Clearly, Tuck and Tage Thompson are the headliners there, and rightfully so. I think it's going to be a great series. I love watching Cole Caulfield. I love watching this Montreal team. Martin St. Louis is a coach I can get behind. But, yeah, that series to me, outside of the one here in town, is the one I'll migrate to. It just feels like Carolina, with their experience and the way they play, is just too much for Philly. I saw Noah Cates now has been ruled out for that series. I hope Philly can find a way back into the series, but as daunting as it looks for Minnesota to beat Colorado, times that by 10, it looks like Philly might be in too deep.
Yeah, and that game 2 is going to be one that they're going to want back. You get 6 power play opportunities, you don't score on any of them, and Carolina is just they get called a machine a lot because I think people just get used to them playing the same style that they've played under Rod Brind'Amour since he's been head coach. But it is it's so visually pleasing to watch them compete on a night in, night out basis. They just have so many guys that are just built for playoff hockey. And I was thinking about this the other day. I think it was during game 1, and Jordan Stahl is still out there just throwing hits and throwing his body around. And I'm like, man, that is a guy that's built for postseason hockey. So that Carolina team is going to be very, very tough. It wouldn't surprise me if Philadelphia finds a way to maybe, get one. But I think their best chance to really get back into this series was game 2, and they just couldn't close it.
The other series out west, fascinating coaching matchup with Quenneville and Tortorella, cup-winning coaches. Both have great personalities. Game 1 was outstanding. I thought Anaheim was the better team that night. Carter Hart had other plans. Vegas, again, experienced team. They've won cups together. They've won playoff series together. They found a way. I still feel like, Seth, that's going to be a 6 or 7 game series. I did not like Anaheim's finish to the regular season. I did not see them winning their first round matchup. They have proven me wrong, and I'll eat my words on that. And I think the way they looked in game 1, they got a shot here. And I know it's a tall order because the experience that Vegas has matters, but I like what Anaheim's putting on the ice.
Yeah, they've got a great mix of players, and I'm a big fan of Lucas Dostal. I think he is similar to Jesper Wallstedt in just his temperament and how he plays as a goalie. I think he will be somebody that can definitely stack up, if not win that matchup against Carter Hart across the way. The key thing for the Ducks is going to be, if you get an opportunity like what they had in game 1, you got to find a way to finish that out. And I know controversial offsides, but this is what teams like Vegas, like Tampa Bay over the last couple of years, this is what those teams with the postseason pedigree do. They find a way. If there's a sliver of the door open, they find a way to sneak through it. And the next thing you know, you go from leading to all of a sudden being on the trailing end. This is going to be a lot of fun. I think this one is definitely going to go at least 6, but I'm pulling for the Ducks. I just love some of that young blood, that new blood in the postseason. I'm pulling for them, but if Vegas ends up winning that, it wouldn't shock me in the slightest.
Yeah, me too. I'm pulling for the Ducks, but I do think Vegas is going to be a tough out. Final question, and then we'll get on with our days. I watched the draft lottery, at least the first pick, and saw the ping pong ball. I want to say it was number 12 that came popping out. Toronto gets the first pick in the draft. Good for hockey, or did you cringe?
I'm not going to lie. I did kind of roll my eyes a little bit because it seems like there is just a list of teams and the NHL just is like, okay, whose turn is it now? Whose turn is it to benefit after even just a little bit of struggle? Like Toronto, they had one down year and it's like, oh, nope, here you go. That's going to be a fascinating situation to watch this offseason, by the way. Those comments by Austin Matthews at the end of the year.
Yikes.
Toronto, they are on a very, very tight line, and they got to do some good work with that, or there might be a pretty high-profile player that wants to look for a new home.
Yeah, super fascinating, and it's you don't realize it till you travel through Toronto what a fishbowl it is. And I always tell people in Minnesota, like, think about the Vikings coverage we get here in town. I mean, if you turn on sports radio, if you turn on your local sportscast, if you read any of the papers online, or if you still get the old school paper copy at your doorstep, it's Vikings 12 months out of the year. It never stops. They overthink everything, and that's the same way it is with Toronto. That is the team in that giant city, and they really overthink everything with the Maple Leafs. It's funny, when I watch the draft lottery, Seth, all I'm pulling for is an Eastern Conference team to get that top pick. If the Wild don't have a look at it, which they normally don't, being a perennial playoff team. So I'm just like, make it an Eastern Conference team. The team I'm most worried about within the West right now that I think in the next 2 or 3 years could be a real problem is the Chicago Blackhawks. They've got a decent core of really good young talent right now. I don't think they're more than a couple of players away from being a playoff contender, not a cup contender, but a team that can contend to make a playoff spot. So I was happy they didn't get it. And as far as Toronto goes, the top pick to me, I think it was a lock for months here, the Penn State kid, Gavin McKenna, but now I don't know that it is, and I'll be super interested to see what they do with it.
Their teams are going to have to do their due diligence. Like I know that situation with McKenna that unfolded throughout the year was obviously not great, and so I know teams are going to be doing their homework to see what he brings, and also I think kind of how a player responds to that kind of situation, because it's something that happens off the ice. So I'm sure if he is the number 1 overall pick, Toronto did their due diligence, but I look at the San Jose Sharks and I'm like, man alive, another number 2 pick for them. They're just giving Macklin Celebrini unlimited weapons around him, and we certainly have seen what he's capable of doing. Watching the Wild go toe to toe with the Sharks, but there are some teams that are on the precipice, which is why I think, considering how long it has taken them to get here, I am glad that the Wild have been one of those teams that are above water and are going with the strategy of let's add some pieces while we still have our heads above water, as opposed to trying to kind of swim our way back up. Those are treacherous waters. It's tough to swim your way back up into playoff contention, and we'll see which one of those teams finally does.
All right, final question, and then we'll wrap it up here. Where are you watching the game on Saturday?
It's a great question. I am not 100% sure as of yet. Still waiting on Mother's Day plans. Might be going back up to St. Cloud to watch. Might be in the cities. It's fluid right now, but it'll be watched somewhere, and I will be hoping for a Matt Boldy hat trick to win us Game 3.
You're going to look awfully smart when he gets that hat trick and he's out there as the number 1 star, getting interviewed in front of 19,000 fans. Hey, appreciate your time. Love your insight. Know how closely you watch this team. I know how much you love this team. And let's hope for a win on Saturday night. And now, if that happens, a really good series against the Cup favorites from Colorado. But have a great weekend, Seth.
Kevin, it's always a pleasure. Always enjoy getting a chance to talk about the Wild, and we'll get everybody rallied and ready to rock and run through a brick wall for Game 3.
If you love the Wild, if you want great coverage, you can find Seth Toupal. Locked On Wild's the place to do it. They're all over social. They're all over your computer. Find them. Dive in. It's great stuff. It's great insight. And if you love the Wild, you're going to really enjoy the coverage they give. So check out Locked On Wild. Here on Wooden Sticks, we're going to take a short break. We'll come back, put a wrap on the show, and preview what's coming up next week as the playoffs continue. We're back to close the show today. It's going to be a quick final segment here. Love your feedback. Always had some great interactions on Twitter with some fans of the podcast. Also had some, let's just say, it got a little fiery with some Dallas Stars hockey fans that just can't get over the fact that our team beat them. It's a way to put them in their place, too. At Gorgomatic21 is where you find me. At Gorgomatic21 on X or Twitter. Would love your recommendations for some guests on the show. Any feedback you might have, we'll look to help out any way we can. And again, if you've got family or friends that want to get involved in sponsoring on this program, Hockey World takes care of the hockey world. We'd love to help you out in that regard as well. Huge game Saturday night. Really looking forward to taking that in person, being in St. Paul for the lead up. I'll be a part of the Wild on 7th podcast with my dear friends John King and Ryan Carter. They're going to be outside near the main entrance there doing their show. I'll stop by, give them a little game preview. We'll get all fired up. We'll go inside, and we'll soak it up with the 19,000 Wild fans and hope that Minnesota can get back in the series. I don't think a series starts until both teams get a win. I don't care if it's home or away. When a home team wins, or when both teams get a win in the series, it's on. And for Minnesota, it'd be a whole heck of a lot different to get your first win and make it 2-1 rather than wait till it's 3-0 and just stave off elimination and make it 3-1. So Saturday to me is everything. Put it all out there. Make the adjustments you have to make. Get that great goaltending you've seen throughout most of this season and most of the playoffs, and then find a way to show Colorado that you're for real. Minnesota all year long was one of the top teams in the National Hockey League, no matter how you looked at it. Points, wins, analytics, this is a top 5 team in the league. And they just beat Dallas, who was one of the best 2 or 3 teams in the league. There is a path to victory here. It has to start on Saturday. I do not see anybody winning 4 straight games against Colorado. You're not going to come back from down 3-0. It has to happen on Saturday. Put all those chips on the table, empty the tank, feed off that crowd. It's going to be rocking in St. Paul, and we'll come back next week here on Wooden Sticks, and we'll get you all fired up for a series at that point that's going to be absolutely on. So thanks again for listening. We'll chat at you next week here on the Talk North Podcast Network.